Deep in the cold dark between stars, 300. Warships moved in perfect silence, there. Hulls were black as old blood, there. Engines glowed a hungry red, the crimson. Spear fleet of the Drathari Empire had crushed 40 worlds in its long career. And tonight it would crush one more. Warlord Ravik watched the stars from the command throne of the flagship Iron Fang. He was a tall reptile scaled, deep crimson, with golden eyes that had seen 1,000 battles. He drummed his claws against the throne arm and felt the slow pleasure of a hunter near the kill. The target was a small blue planet at the edge of the rim. The locals called it Earth, the Drathari called it nothing. Yet because nothing worth naming had come from it. Hyperspace exit in 2 minutes, my lord, the navigation officer reported. Ravik gave a slow nod. He had read the file on these humans, a young species. 2 centuries in space, 12 colony worlds all weak. Their warships were tin cans with toy guns, their best fighter could not match a Drathari. Scout intelligence said the humans had been warned 3 times to bow to the Empire. 3 times they had refused. Politely, like children turning down a bedtime. Politeness, Ravik thought, was the last word of the dying. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace. The blue planet hung before them, soft and round, ringed by a single gray moon. Ravik rose from his throne. All ships, he said, charge main. Weapons target the cities, begin with the western continent. Across 300 bridges, gunners pressed their claws to firing pads, reactor cores climbed toward red. Targeting. Computers locked onto towers and roads. And quiet rivers. Then something strange happened. On the Iron Fang, the main screen flickered, not a blackout, not static. Just a soft ripple like water touched by a finger. The targeting computer lost its lock. The gunner tapped the console twice and frowned. My lord, the gunner said, weapons are not responding. Ravik turned, reset them. I am trying, my lord, the system says. The weapons are not there. What? Before anyone could answer, the moon below them changed. A pale blue light bloomed from its dark side. It was soft, almost gentle, like the first hour of dawn. It did not flash, it did not roar, it simply spread outward through space, slow and quiet, like ink spreading in water. The light touched the lead destroyer, the Talon's edge on the fleet's left flank. Ravik watched the screen, ready to see fire and shrapnel. He saw nothing. The Talon's edge was simply not there anymore. No debris, no bodies, no flash. The ship had 2,000 crew aboard a moment before. Now there was only empty space where it had been. Ravik's golden eyes went wide. The blue light kept spreading. It touched the next ship, the Storm Wing. And the Storm Wing was gone. Then a cruiser, then a carrier, then 5 destroyers in a row, each one ate by the soft blue glow, without sound, without warning, without a single distress signal. Full reverse, Ravik roared. All ships jump to hyperspace now. The helm officer's claws shook above the controls. My lord, the engines are also gone, the system says. The system says the engines were never installed. Ravik grabbed the officer by the throat. Make it work. But the blue light had already reached the Iron Fang. Ravik felt nothing at first, no heat, no pain. He looked down at his hand, the one holding the helm officer, and saw the tips of his claws beginning to fade. Not melt, not burn, fade like a drawing, being slowly erased. In his last second, Ravak the warlord, killer of 40 worlds, did something he had never done before in his life. He whispered a question. "What are you?" There was no answer. The Iron Fang vanished. Ravak vanished. 300 warships and 600,000 soldiers vanished. The blue light pulled back into the moon as gently as it had come, and the stars were quiet again. In the Drafthari Empire's command center 10,000 light-years away, alarms began to scream. Admiral Tosker stared at the wall display in growing horror. 300 green dots had been on that screen. Now there were none, not one. He had served 40 years in the Imperial Navy, and he had never seen a fleet die without a single distress call. "Get me a probe out there," he barked. "Now smallest, fastest one we have. Long-range scanners, full record send." It. The probe launched. 10 minutes later it reached the place where the Crimson Spear fleet had been. Tosker leaned forward, sweat sliding down his scaled brow. The probe began to scan. Empty space. No wreckage, no radiation. No engine signatures, nothing. Then the probe's camera caught something, the gray moon of Earth, hanging in the dark. On its dark side, in glowing letters that were clearly not natural, a single word had been written. Across the rock, the letters were in clean, simple human English. They were 100 km tall, glowing a soft blue that matched the light from before. The word was leave. Tossiger read it 3 times. His mouth went dry. The probe signal blinked once, then died. He turned slowly to the duty officer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Get me the Empress." The throne world of the Drafthari Empire was a planet of black towers and red skies. Storms rolled across it day and night, lit by the flames of 1,000 factories that built warships for endless conquest. At the center of all this stood the high spire, a tower so tall its tip touched the upper clouds. Inside the spire, the High Council had been called for the first time in 80 years. Empress Valen sat upon the Iron Throne. She was old now, her crimson scales dulled by time, but her eyes were still sharp as broken glass. Around her the 12 council lords took their seats in heavy silence. Each one had heard the news. Each one wore the same expression of disbelief mixed with cold fear. The screen at the center of the chamber lit up. Lord Strategist Kale stepped forward to speak. 300 warships, Kale said. His voice was flat. 600,000 soldiers, Warlord Ravak. All gone. There are no bodies. There is no debris. There is no hyperspace trail. They are simply not anywhere. A council lord named Drazen slammed his fist on the table. Impossible. No species can erase a fleet without a battle. Where are the energy readings? Where are the scars? Weapon leaves marks. That is the problem, Lord Drazen, Kale said. There are no marks. The probe found one thing only, a message on the moon of Earth written in their language. The word was leave. Another lord, a thin and pale Drafthari named Saz, leaned forward. "And what do we know of these humans?" "Truly." Kale tapped the screen. A file opened. 2 centuries in space, 12 worlds. Their largest warship mass is 1/3 of one of ours. Their weapons are kinetic and laser-based, 50 years behind our standard. Their armor is weak. Their shields are weaker. By every record we have, this species cannot do what was just done. "Then your records are wrong," Saz said softly. The chamber went silent. Empress Valen finally spoke. Her voice Was old, but it carried. Tell me how this happened. Tell me what we missed. Kale looked uncomfortable. He pulled up another file. Empress, we have always watched the humans for their weapons, their guns, their ships, their armies. By those measures, they are no threat, but we did not watch their science, their universities, their thinkers. We thought such things were toys for the weak. We may have made an error. A new voice cut through the room. It belonged to General Boren, the oldest member of the council. His scales were gray with age, and his left eye was a glass replacement from a war fought before most of the others were born. He stood slowly, leaning on a black cane. I knew this day would come, Boren said, not from the humans but from someone. The Empire has grown lazy. We have crushed so many weak worlds for so long that we forgot a simple rule. The galaxy is large. We have not measured every corner of it. There will always be a wall we cannot break, and one day we will run into it. Drazen scoffed. Old words from an old soldier. We must respond. Send 10,000 ships, burn their planet to glass, show the galaxy that the Empire cannot be touched. Several lords nodded. The fear in the room wanted to become anger because anger was easier. But Boren shook his head. You did not see what I saw, Drazen. Look at the recording again. 300 ships, 8.7 seconds, no fight, no flash. The humans did not destroy our fleet. They unmade it. There is a difference. Destroy means power. Unmake means understanding. We do not know what they understand. He looked around the table. If we send 10,000 ships, we will lose 10,000 ships. If we send 100,000, we will lose 100,000. The wall does not care how hard you run at it. The Empress Valen tapped one claw against the throne. Then what do you suggest, old friend? Boren took a slow breath. Send one ship, a diplomat, not a warrior. Send someone who can ask, not threaten. We need to know who these humans are. We need to know what they want. We need to know why they did not strike first when they could have species that can erase a fleet, but only rights leave on a moon is not the kind of enemy we are used to. They might not be an enemy at all, yet. The chamber was quiet. Drazen's claws dug into the table, but he did not argue. Even his rage could feel the truth in Boren's words. Empress Valen closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them, her decision was made. Ambassador Veles will go, she said. She is sharp and proud, and she has never bowed to anyone. If the humans wish to send a message, let her bring it back to me. If they wish to make demands, let her hear them. If they wish to kill her, let that be its own answer. Kale bowed. It will be done, Empress. Valen leaned back on her throne. Her old eyes drifted to the great window of the spire where the red storm clouds rolled on forever. And bring me Warlord Ravek's logbook. She added quietly, I want to read his last words. I want to know what he did wrong before we make the same mistake. Outside, the storm cracked open the sky. The diplomat ship Quiet Word slid into Earth's solar system at half speed. It was small by Drathari standards, only 400 m long, painted a polite cream color. Instead of war black, its weapons were sealed under cover plates. Its shields were down. This was on purpose. Ambassador Veles had insisted. If they wanted us dead, Veles had said before launch, they would have killed us already. Let us not look like food. She stood now at the front viewport of her ship. She was a tall Drathari noble, silver-scaled and elegant, dressed in robes of deep green silk, her tail flicked behind her with controlled patience. She had handled 40 negotiations in her career, trade deals, surrender treaties, royal marriages. She had stood across from kings and warlords and bug-faced merchant queens. She did not believe in fear. But as the quiet word approached the third planet, Veles caught herself touching the edge of the viewport with one careful claw, as if testing whether the glass was real. The communications officer turned in his seat. "Ambassador, we are being hailed." "Put it on." A human voice came through the speaker. It was a woman's voice, warm and unhurried. "Drathari vessel, this is Earth Orbital Station Lighthouse. We have you on our scanners. Welcome to our solar system. Please proceed to docking bay 3. We will have refreshments ready when you arrive. Tea or coffee?" Veles blinked. She had been ready for warnings, threats, demands for surrender. Instead, the human had asked her about hot drinks. "Tea," she said carefully. "I thank you. Coming right up. See you soon." The line closed. Veles turned to her aide. "Did she just say, 'see you soon'?" "Yes, Ambassador." "Like we are old friends?" "Yes, Ambassador." The quiet word docked at Lighthouse Station, a ring of soft white metal that hung above the blue planet. The doors opened with a gentle hiss. Veles stepped out, claws ready, eyes sharp. Standing on the other side was a single human woman in a simple gray uniform. She was small, much smaller than any Drathari, with brown hair pulled back and dark, friendly eyes. Behind her, on a small folding table, was a porcelain teapot, 2 cups, and a plate of small biscuits. There were no guards, no weapons, no drawn lines. The woman bowed her head slightly. "Ambassador Veles, I am Captain Webb. Thank you for coming such a long way. Please have a seat. The journey from your throne world is over a month. You must be tired." Veles stared. She had expected at minimum a row of armed marines, some show of strength to balance what had happened to the Crimson Spear. But there was only Captain Webb and tea. Slowly, carefully, Veles sat down in the small human chair. It groaned under her weight but held. Captain Webb poured a cup of tea and slid it toward her. "It is a green tea from a place called Japan," Webb said. "It goes down easy after long trips." Veles sipped. It was warm and slightly bitter. "Captain Webb," she said, "I will be plain. The Drathari Empire wishes to know what destroyed our fleet." Webb smiled gently and shook her head. "That is not really my area, Ambassador. I am just a station officer, but I have been told that Director Holt would like to speak with you in person. He has answers. Would you mind taking a short shuttle down to Earth?" Veles paused. To leave her ship was a risk. If they wanted a hostage, this would be the moment, but she had already crossed the void. "I will go." The shuttle ride was smooth. Earth from above was a strange sight to Veles. So much water, so much cloud. Her own home world was dry and red. Earth looked soft, fragile. The shuttle landed in a quiet city called Geneva beside a wide blue lake, ringed by white-capped mountains. Veles was led through clean streets where humans walked their small four-legged pets and drank from paper cups. No one stared at her with hate. A few children stopped to wave. One offered her a small yellow flower, which she accepted with Confused dignity. She was taken to a plain stone building, with no guards at the door, inside on. The third floor was a wooden office. An old man sat behind the desk. He had thin, gray hair, gentle brown eyes, and the worn smile of someone who had seen too much for too long. "Director Holt," he said, standing up to shake her claw. "Please sit. I am sorry. The building is so simple. We do not really do grand halls here." Veli sat. She drew in a long breath and asked the question her empress had sent her to ask. "What weapon erased our fleet?" Holt sat back down. He folded his hands on the desk. For a long moment he just looked at her with great sadness. "Ambassador," he said, "we do not have weapon. We have a rule. Any fleet that enters our solar system uninvited will be removed." Removed? Yes. That is a soft word for what was done. It is the right word, Ambassador. We do not destroy things. That would be wasteful and a little cruel. We simply remove them. He pulled a small blue crystal from a drawer and slid it across the desk. "Take this home, show it to your empress, tell her we are not her enemy, but also tell her we will not be touched again." Velis picked up the crystal. It was light as a feather. She did not know it yet, but it would change her empire forever. 41 days later, the great hall of the High Spire was packed with every council lord, every fleet admiral, every imperial scholar of note. The empress had ordered them all to come. Even Drazen, the loudest voice for war, sat in his seat with his claws clenched and his teeth tight together. In the center of the chamber stood Ambassador Velis. She had returned alive. She had returned alone, and she had returned with a small blue crystal in her palm. Empress Valen looked down from the iron throne. "Tell us what you saw, Velis." Velis bowed. "I saw a city without walls, Empress. I saw children offer me flowers. I saw an old man drink water from a paper cup. I saw a planet that does not look at the stars with hunger. The humans gave me this crystal and asked us to watch it." Valen waved a claw. "Play it." The crystal was placed in the central reader. The chamber lights dimmed. A great image bloomed in the air above the council, 10 wide, sharp as truth itself. The recording began with the crimson spear fleet exactly as it had appeared. Near Earth, every council lord recognized the formation. 300 ships, weapons hot, the proud red glow of imperial engines. Many had served on those ships in their youth. Drazen sucked in a sharp breath. He had a nephew on the Iron Fang. Then the camera angle shifted. The recording was not from Drafari sensors. It was from an Earth view taken from somewhere on the far side of the moon. The dark side of the moon began to glow. Clear's throat. Out of the gray rock came the soft blue field. It spread slowly, almost lazily, like fog rolling down a hill. There was no sound in space, but the recording added a faint hum so that watchers could feel the moment. The hum was gentle, almost a lullaby. The blue field touched the first warship. The ship did not explode. It did not burn. It simply unraveled bow to stern in 2 perfect seconds. The hull peeled away into nothing. The crew, the engines, the guns, all of it dissolved at the level of the smallest pieces of matter. The watchers in the hall could see in the slowed footage that the atoms themselves were being told politely to stop existing, and they were obeying. One by one, the 300 ships were unmade. 8.7 seconds. The watchers counted. Horror. Then the blue field rolled back into the moon as gentle as a cat returning to a basket. The image changed. Now the council was looking inside. Small white room on Earth. It was a simple lab, no bigger than a kitchen. There was a table, a computer, a few coffee cups, and a small human child, perhaps 6 years old, sitting in a chair. Too big for her, she had 2 ribbons in her dark hair. She was holding a tablet in her tiny hands. A woman's voice came from off camera. It was warm and patient. Okay, sweetheart, the fleet is in position. Whenever you are ready, just tap the green button. Remember, gentle press, do not squeeze it. The child bit her lip in concentration. Then she pressed the button with one small finger. The image cut back to the ships, unraveling, then back to the child. The woman's voice spoke again. Good job, sweetheart. That was a clean test. Want a juice box? The child smiled wide. Yes, please. Mama. The recording ended. The chamber was so silent that Veles could hear her own heartbeat. Drazen, the warrior who had demanded 10,000 ships, slowly slid out of his chair onto his knees. He did not weep, because Drethari did not weep, but his great red shoulders shook in long, quiet shudders. Empress Valen sat very still. Her old claws gripped the throne so hard that drops of pale blood began to bead between her fingers. She did not seem to notice. General Boren was the first to speak. His voice was soft and dry, the voice of a man who had seen the wall he warned about and was not surprised to find it made of glass. It was a child, he said. They sent child to do it. Not sent, Veli said quietly. Trusted. The humans trusted a child with the destruction of 300 warships. Because to them, it was not destruction. It was a button. It was a science fair test. The child did not even know what she was doing. Then who did know? Drazen rasped from the floor. The mother and probably a few others. But Empress, hear me, I asked Director Holt how many such devices the humans have. He smiled at me with that tired old smile and said they had stopped counting, that every major university on Earth has at least one, that children build them in school clubs. Lord Sass made a small choked sound. Children. Their adults are even more frightening. Empress, because their adults have grown bored of building these things and have moved on to harder problems. Valen finally moved. She lifted her bleeding claw and looked at the red on her fingers. Then she looked up at Boren. Old friend, you said the wall does not care how hard we run at it. Yes, Empress. You were wrong. The wall is a very small girl with ribbons in her hair who has been told gently by her mother not to squeeze the green button too hard. Boren nodded slowly. That is a fair correction. The Empress closed her old eyes. What did Holt say they want, Veles? Veles pulled a small folded paper from her sleeve. It was a note in clean human handwriting. She read the 3 words aloud and they fell into the silent hall like soft snow. Just be kind. 2 days passed before the High Council met again. Empress Valen had ordered the Imperial Intelligence Service to bring everything they had on humanity. Not the weapons files, not the fleet reports. Everything else, the science, the papers, the strange small projects the Drethari spies had laughed about for decades. Now those laughing files were stacked in great piles on the council table, and no One was laughing anymore. The chief of Imperial Intelligence was a quiet old female named Inra. She had served 4 empresses. She rarely spoke, unless she had something terrible to say. She stood at the table and bowed. Empress, I will be brief. We have failed in our duty. For 120 years we watched the humans for the wrong things. We watched their armies. They have small armies. We watched their navies. They have weak navies. We did not watch their schools. We did not watch their thinkers. We did not watch the things they did for fun on their weekends. Volant tilted her head. Their weekends. Yes, Empress, humans have a custom of 2 days each week where they do not work. They use these days for what they call hobbies: cooking, walking in fields, and building things in their garages. Garages. Small storage rooms attached to their homes. Empress, we have records of humans building in these small rooms devices that can detect particles smaller than any our science has named. We dismissed these as toys. They were not toys. Drazen, still pale from the recording, leaned forward. Tell us about the blue light. What is it? Inra brought up a chart on the wall. Screen. As best we understand, Empress, it is not a weapon. It is a permission. The humans have learned how to ask matter very politely to stop holding itself together. Matter, it seems, does not need much convincing. Borin frowned. Matter listens to a request. At the smallest level, General, everything is a kind of agreement. Atoms agree to be atoms. Molecules agree to be molecules. The humans found a way to ask politely for the agreement to end. When it ends, the matter simply stops being itself. It does not become energy. It does not become heat. It just stops. Where does it go? We do not know, General. The humans say it goes home. We do not know what that means. The chamber was very still. Valen tapped one bleeding claw on the throne arm. How many years did this take them? Inra hesitated. Empress, the first paper on this idea was written by a human scholar over 300 years ago, before they had even left their planet. He was laughed at by his peers. They called his idea poetry, not science. He died poor and forgot. 2 of his students kept his notes. 2 more of theirs kept those. The work passed quietly through generations of curious humans. They never built weapons from it. They never sold it. They never told their own governments. They simply kept asking the question, what is matter really, and how does it choose to be? 300 years, Valen said softly. Yes, Empress, while we were burning worlds, they were reading old books in quiet rooms. Drazen's voice cracked. Why did they not strike sooner? They could have crushed us a century ago. Inra looked at him with steady old eyes. Because they did not want to crush anyone. They are not like us. We measure ourselves by who we have beaten. And GT snorts. And GT, they measure themselves by what they understand. There is no joy for them in defeating an enemy. There is only joy in learning a new thing. The blue light was not built to kill. It was built because they wanted to know if it could be done. When they found out it could, they put it away in a drawer and went to dinner. Then why use it on the Crimson Spear? Drazen demanded. Why use it at all? Veli stepped forward. I asked Director Holt the same question. He told me the humans only use the blue light when there is no other choice. They had warned us 3 times to leave them alone. We sent 300 warships anyway. so they used the smallest amount of force needed. They did not touch our throne world, they did not punish our colonies, they only removed the ships we sent, and then they wrote leave on a moon in case we missed the message. She took a breath. Holt told me something else, Empress. Something I have not yet shared. Valen's old eyes sharpened. Speak. He said the blue light is no longer their most advanced project. It is over. 50 years old. He would not tell me what their newest projects are. He only smiled and said with great kindness that we would never need to find out if we kept our hands to ourselves. The chamber felt suddenly cold even through the deep red walls. Boren spoke last. He had stood quiet through all of it, leaning on his black cane. Now he straightened as much as his old back would allow. Empress, I make my report. The humans are not weak, they are not poor, they are not behind us, they have been ahead of us for longer than this empire has existed. We have ruled half of a galaxy. Thinking we were the strongest, we were not, we were only the loudest. He bowed. I recommend a single course of action. Apologize truly with nothing held back, and then leave them alone forever if they wish. Valen sat in silence for a long time. Then she rose from the throne, slow and old, and looked at her trembling council. It will be done. A small ship returned to Earth 2 weeks later. It was not the quiet word this time, it was something even smaller, the size of a delivery shuttle, painted a soft pale blue at the request of Empress Valen herself. She had been told the humans like that color, and she did not wish to seem rude. Inside the shuttle was Ambassador Valen's again, and beside her this time was old General Boren, leaning on his black cane. The Empress had insisted he go in person. He had served in the wars of conquest for 60 years. If anyone could speak honestly to the humans about what the Empire had been, it was him. They were greeted at Lighthouse Station by Captain Webb again. She brought tea. Again, she asked about the journey. Again, she offered a fresh plate of small biscuits with little jam centers. Boren tried one and found to his quiet surprise that he liked it very much. They were taken down to Geneva. Director Holt was waiting with the same tired smile. This time there were no demands and no questions. Boren laid down a heavy scroll on the wooden desk. It was the Imperial Apology, signed in the Empress's own blood, a Drethari custom. For the most serious of promises. He spoke the apology aloud in slow, simple human English, which he had learned in 2 weeks of tireless practice. We were wrong. We sent our fleet to your home. 600,000 of our soldiers died. Because of our pride, not yours, we will never enter your space again without invitation. We will protect your borders. If asked, we will pay any debt you name. We are sorry. Holt listened in silence. When Boren finished, the old human stood up, walked around the desk, and placed one warm hand on Boren's shoulder. Thank you, General, I accept. We are not your enemies, we never were. Drink your tea before it gets cold. That was all. There was no treaty hall, there was no signing ceremony, there was no parade. The most important piece in the history of the galaxy was made in a small wooden office between an old soldier and a tired old man over 2 cups of green tea. Word spread through the stars in the months that followed. The Coretha Gemini heard it first and pulled back 3 of their patrol fleets from human space. The Velsi Trade Union sent humble gifts. and offers of fair trade, even the silent machines of the outer reach who had not spoken to organic species in 2,000 years, sent a single short message to Earth in plain human language. Message read, "We have observed, we will not test you, be well." Earth replied with 3 words, "Be well." 2 years passed. The Drethari Empire did not collapse, but it changed. Empress Valen ruled 12 more years and then stepped down for a younger heir. She spent her last days in a quiet garden tower on her home world, drinking a strange dark drink the humans had sent her as a gift. They called it coffee. She had grown to love it. General Boren lived even longer than that. He was given a small estate on the edge of the imperial capital and was made the special envoy to Earth, a job that mostly involved reading reports and going to dinners. He went to Earth 4 times in his last years. Each time Holt was there to meet him. Each time the tea was warm. On Boren's last visit, Holt was very old. And Boren was very old too. They sat on a bench by the blue lake in Geneva. The mountain stood white and quiet in the distance. A few children played at the water's edge, throwing small flat stones to skip across the surface. Holt, Boren said, his voice had grown thin with age, "I must ask, may I ask? Always, my friend, what have your people built since the blue light?" Velis told me long ago that it was old to you. It has been over 20 years more. Holt smiled, the same tired smile he had always smiled. He watched the children skip stones for a long, quiet moment. "General, if I told you, would you sleep tonight?" "Probably not." "Then I will not tell you, but I will say this: whatever we have built, we keep in drawers. We do not take it out. We have no plans to take it out. We are still busy with the more important work, which is..." Holt nodded toward the children at the water's edge. "Teaching them to be kind. It is harder than the science, General, much harder." Boren was quiet for a long time. He thought of his own youth. He thought of the worlds he had burned. He thought of Warlord Ravak, dead now for 2 decades, whose last word had been a question to a quiet blue light. "What are you?" He understood finally what the answer had been. "You are kind," the light had said. "We are not, so we will go now." Boren set down his teacup. He put his old scaled hand on the bench beside Holt's old human hand. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Above them, the stars were beginning to come out in the evening sky. They were the same stars Boren had once flown through with weapons hot, looking for new worlds to crush. Now they only looked like small soft lights, like a galaxy at peace. A small girl with ribbons in her hair came up shyly from the lake. She held out a flat gray stone to Boren. "Mister, you have to throw it sideways," she said, like this. She showed him. Boren smiled, took the stone in his old red claw, and tried. It skipped 4 times. The girl clapped her small hands.